Well, ongoing reports of illicit conduct have kept the role of boards and directors of companies in the spotlight recently. The list of companies being in the news for unethical practice appear to be growing every day. And the conduct of company directors and executives is increasingly under scrutiny. Well, to look at this and talk about the risk involved in terms of liabilities, we're joined now by Astfalck, Litigation Insurance Director at Norton Rose Fulbright, SA. Mr. Astfalck, good morning, and thank you very much for coming in. I guess as more and more ethical and social governance issues are finding themselves into the public discourse and social media platforms and all of that, the role of directors and executives and what liability that exposes them to becomes more and more pronounced.
Dan, that's very correct. Thank you very much for having me on your show this morning. I think what we're seeing in our country today is a good illustration of the types of situations and the types of risks that directors might face in the course of conducting business. Of course, doing business in today's world is a very complex and challenging thing, and directors need to analyze their businesses, analyze the types of risks they might face, and take proactive steps and measures to guard against that.
Now, if you look at the case, I'm just going to use an example here because we're not talking about particular companies, but just KPMG comes up to mind. Recently, McKinsey comes up to mind. Eskom comes up to mind. Now, if you're sitting in that boardroom, you're sitting in that executive room, what kinds of those liabilities you should really be planning for and making sure that you're not facing this huge legal cost bill?
Yes, I can't comment on specific companies, but I think what we're seeing from a general perspective is an increased possibility of legal action against directors. And what we're also seeing internationally is growing scrutiny by industry regulators who are taking far more of an interest in the way in which directors are conducting themselves and the way in which companies are being run, and they are calling upon directors to attend inquiries, answer questions, provide information. And those types of liabilities or potential liabilities are the things that directors need to think about.
Now, if you were advising them, I mean, okay, if I'm a liability insurer, there's an opportunity for me here, obviously, to say, okay. But if you were advising these people generally, say, what are the steps that you must take to make sure that you are comfortably or reasonably insured against some of these possible claims?
Yes, you need to look at the types of risks particular to your business. You need to be guided by professional advisors, your insurance broker, for example, and you need to have discussions with them about what might be the risks that will arise, the liabilities, and you need to then, again, with your brokers and your advisors, go into the market, have a look at what the options are for directors and officers liability insurance, and take out that insurance.
Yeah, I mean, once you're a director, you've got fiduciary duties, and they can also be held personally liable, right?
Yes, that's correct. And it's something that many people don't realize when they take on the position of a director, that they can be held personally liable for breach of duty.
So do you have to make sure that you are protected or insured as an individual director and also the organization itself? How should it work?
So directors and officers liability insurance is taken out to protect the individual director. And those directors can go into the market, look for that type of insurance, and it will then generally respond, subject to its terms and conditions, to a legal claim against the director, him or herself. And some of these policies also provide for the payment of legal defense costs.
Should there be a distinction between directors who sit on the board and the executive management team, like your chief executive officer, chief financial officer, and your chairman and the people on the board?
So our company law recognizes that directors and senior officers, senior managers within an organization, all hold these duties in law to the company. So D&O insurance would cover all those sorts of people within the organization.
Yeah. Now, if you talk about, I mean, it's a minefield, because besides consumer rights, you've got human rights, and if you're a business and you infringe on some of them, people now tend to Twitter, for example, or Facebook very quickly. Would you, from a legal perspective, from your experience, be advising some of these directors and everybody to really be aware across everything what is happening that's affecting their business, and be aware of all the conversations that are happening that could turn out to be a little bit risky for them?
Yes, I think that's absolutely correct. I think what we're talking about here is education of directors and their employees, training, monitoring the training of directors and employees within the companies, and creating a general awareness for these types of things. D&O insurances is not something traditionally that's been very well understood, and I think there's an opportunity here with what we're seeing today to grow that awareness and to educate directors and senior officers within companies.
Thank you very much for your insights there. That's Astfalck, Litigation Insurance Director at Norton Rose Fulbright, South Africa. In other news,